Ettore,
Good to see you.
yeah, we came in a sports with Fabio in a sports suit because we thought that you are after a practice, but but you were with the with. Thank you for your time, Ettore. Really, really,
My pleasure. My pleasure. My
it's a
pleasure. Please.
really big privilege and to talk to you and in the name of all attendants in the clinic, and I hope it
Thank you
will
so
be
much.
will be one of the big conferences. Look, it will be a little bit a scientific conference about basketball, and I want to make a clash of science and practice, because
I understand.
we have 5 questions for you, Ettore, and I will
Please, please.
really go far, and I really don't want to rub you
Sure.
on time. First will be some, okay, maybe it's a scientific questions, but can you tell us what do you think, what have been the turning points in the development of the world basketball so far?
I think that the athleticism has been the key. The players are much stronger, more. I think they're quicker. I think they are much more well trained from a physical standpoint, and they're just better athletes. You know, of course, if you imagine in the 50s, George Mikan was a dominating center in the 60s, 50, 60, and now probably a center of 2 meters and 3 could never play center, you know, unless in specific systems like, for example, the Warriors or whatever. But I think bottom line is players are much more athletic, and connected to this, there is let's say a basketball issue, which is that the court is too small. It's too small now, and the two things together are really changing the game, and it will be changed and changed more and more in the next years.
Yes, and great. And that's my second questions. That how do you see basketball in future? We will talk about this on the conference in 2030. Will be only in physical way, tactical, technical, mental development.
No, I think. Well, first of all, like every human activity, basketball will develop skills that are required, whether it's mental skills. There are a lot of, people, players, clubs are studying more and more how to develop chemistry, how to build confidence, how to help the players to create their own strong personality. That's out of the question, but it's in every activity. If you think about tennis years ago, it was a player and a coach. Now it's a player and a staff, physiotherapist, strength coach, mental coach, tactical coach. It's, people are more and more followed. Going back to basketball, I think that the most important skill that will be developed in the next years is the long distance shot. Players need to learn to play at least 2 giant steps behind the 3-point line, because if they come closer, they can't shoot because of the aggressive defense, because of the switching, because of the limited size of the court. So more and more players will need, it's exactly what happened with the 3-point shot. Players that were shooting, let's say, from 5.5 meters develop an ability to shoot from 6.25. And it will be the same thing, even if there will not be a line on the court, a longer line, players need to learn to shoot from far distance. Otherwise, most of these players will be worthless, more and more.
Yeah, that means that the physical development will make insurance on tactical and technical things, and that's what exactly is happening now in basketball.
Absolutely, and this is how the game will again change, because now players, because of the switch, now you can basically try to take away the underneath shot and the 3-point shot, like they do in the NBA. But if everybody moves 2 steps behind the 3-point line, now all of a sudden if the bigs switch and they have to guard a very good shooter 2 steps behind the 3-point line, now it opens up completely the mid game again, that is completely lost in these days. In these days, basically, our generation, we were teaching our players the pull-up jumper. 1, 2 dribble, 3 dribbles, change of direction, pull up, pull up, pull up. Now it's a lost art. Very few players are capable to shoot the mid-range shot off the dribble. If they extend the range, now more and more, there will be that, let's say, no man's land where people can go and attack the defense that right now is not used. And I think you can see almost every team. Let's watch the Euroleague. In the Euroleague, about every team has at least one player with incredible range. Kyle Kuric, J.C. Carroll was with Barcelona. We have this kid, Troy Daniels, that the main thing he can do is shoot from 10 meters. And he shoots like a layup, you know. CSKA has Alexei Shved. So every team has at least one. And I'm thinking that going forward, if you can have a player, a regular player, I mean a player who can dribble, pass, not a specialist, but can have a little bit more range, that player will become very, very valuable. So that's where I think the individual teaching and the individual preparation will go, to extend the shooting range of the players.
Yeah, thank you, Ettore. Now the next question will be more personal, but maybe it's everybody's asking you about the difference between NBA and Euroleague, because you are the right person to talk about. I will ask you some things about the scientific difference in a recovery process, load monitoring. Now Kinexon came to Europe, you know, we have indoor catapults, mental rest, and all of the scientific part. It will be nice if we can hear about your opinion.
Well, this is really interesting. So, first of all, now they have incredible stuffs in terms of people. I remember with the Spurs, we're talking, my last year was 2.5 years ago. We had 3 strength coaches. And then there were probably, if I remember correctly, at least 7 people in the performance group, talking about physiotherapists, head of performance, people who were studying the load for the players, so the catapult and everything else. So huge stuff. Plus there was a psychologist and of course the doctors, the specialists. So, you know, orthopedic surgeon or blah, 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 all those kind of things. But the biggest study were already back then, they were studying recovery. They were studying how people were sleeping. They were studying the workload after the game, and minutes limitations were already, you know, discussed every day, not only after an injury, but load management through the games. So sometimes, and this has been honestly for me extremely important coming to Milano and playing the Euroleague and the Italian league, because now we have a lot of situation where we rest people, even taking the risk of losing a game, or we handle the minutes. And back then, I remember when I had my team in Bologna with the 3 Serbians, Savic, Danilovic, and Nesterovic in 1999. Sasha Danilovic, if I didn't play him 33, 34 minutes, was mad at me. Now, if I play a player 33, 34, he's tired. He's done. I mean, he can't do it. But there is a reason. Last year, we played 92 games in Milano. 92. We were the team that played most games in Europe. So, you know, you need... and the thing is, before I grew up, like you grew up, in that environment where you needed to practice, 2 times a day. And if you were not doing that, they were considering you like a lazy coach. Especially the players that were coming from Eastern Europe, if you were not loading them, they were thinking you were soft. You were not a good coach. Okay? Now, and back then, rest was never considered like part of the practice. I think that's the biggest adjustment. That you do not want... Now, nobody wants to train players who are tired. But where's the difference? that back then when we were younger, to train players who were tired, and Fabio is one of them that went through this, was also used to build a mentality, to build some mental toughness. Now there are other systems to build mental toughness that is not killing people who are already tired and making them practice for hours and hours when they cannot absorb any kind of teaching just because they're tired, mentally and physically. They are exhausted, you know. But back then, I remember, toughness was developed through hard working, even in extreme situations. I remember that there were teams that they were doing in preseason, like 2 weeks without the ball in the mountain. Now you can't do that. Yes. You can't do that because of the schedule, because of the national teams, because of this and that and that. So to become efficient, it's a big part of the work.
Yes, because I remember always, and we are talking about 80s, end of 80s, when Pécs brought the generation of Kukoc, Raja, and to run, and now we are talking about that how it's really different. Now we are trying to use this load monitoring, and we need standards. What is your opinion to how to use that load monitoring systems here in Europe, especially for youngsters, Ettore?
Honestly, my instinctive answer is that you can apply that to teams that have so many games and such a huge load. But you know, with young players who basically play very few games, sometimes they play at a level which is not the highest possible. I think honestly, I would continue the way we did it. Just to put it simple. I would not. It's more important, in my opinion, that you balance well, and this is something that I don't see every time. You balance well the growth of these kids, of these young players, on the three different levels. The three levels are the mental level, the physical level, and the technical level. And I see too many times that we push too much one of these two levels, and we, for example, ignore the mental part. And all these three levels interfere one with the other a lot. Because if, for example, just saying simple, stupid thing, if you become physically stronger because you develop some skills, you feel immediately mentally a little bit stronger. So now you can put more charge technically. But there are a lot of situations, I've seen this in America too, a lot. Because in America, for example, they do a lot of these individual workout with no defense. And you can see players who are fabulous without contact. And as soon as they put contact, they lose their balance and they cannot do anything of all the things that they know how to do it. So to learn how to play through contact, I think, and to teach how to play through contact, I think it's not so simple. And that's where you can get better as a coach. Because all of us were very good, or we can probably become very good in teaching with no contact. But this is not track and field. Look, it's not a matter of who runs faster. First of all, it's a matter of recognizing talent. Second, it's a matter of recognizing how people can use their talent through contact. Because regardless how much I jump, you know better than me. If when they push me or if they have contact, I cannot jump the same way, I'm worthless. You know, maybe a player who can jump less, but he can jump in traffic is much more effective. And imagine this, especially for big men. Big men, they catch the ball in the post, they get a little contact, they straight up their legs. Now they're off balance, and now they lose their ability, and now they lose their confidence. And now you have people who have a problem in terms of, you know, finding his own way because they get frustrated. They do not know how to handle it. They think that they're not good enough technically, but that's not the real thing. So I think there is I would not be so worried about the load with the young players. I'm much more concerned how we teach and how we help them to develop the three level in a let's say coordinate way. Let's put it like this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I think it's a question really for you because the legend said that Aca Nikolic, when he was in the late 60s, in the late 60s when he first time he came to Italy, that he was bored and he started to make 2 practices per day. And it was a big jump in a basketball practicing. and we all grew up with 2-a-day practice. But Ettore, what's going now? What's the situation now with I know we know a lot of things in NBA. How do you work? Look, I remember when in Moscow I practiced one per day because it's a big traffic and
yes, sure.
Yes,
I remember.
Yes, but what's the really scientific situation about the 2-a-day practice nowadays?
Well, I think you can do that in a pre-season phase. I think you can do that maybe in a post-season. I've seen, for example, a lot of players in America that during the off season, for example, they lift weights in the morning, or they do individual teaching in the morning, and then they scrimmage in the afternoon, for example. So it's not a matter of the 2-a-day, depending what the 2-a-day is. And I don't think we can do that during the season. I mean, with the traveling, the games, and whatever, it's impossible. I think it's really impossible. I think even in my last years in CSKA, I remember, and back then we were playing only one Euroleague game during the week. We could just have one day, usually Tuesday, where we could do weights and individual instruction in the morning and basketball and team basketball in the evening. That was the only day. Now, most of the times we have 9 weeks with the double game. Can you believe that? 9 weeks. Last year, to give you an example, because of the COVID games that were postponed at one point, between January and the end of December, January, beginning of February, we had 7 straight weeks with double game of EuroLeague because we had to make up the games that were not played before. How can you practice? How can you? In addition to this, there is one problem which is huge, which is the lack of coordination of the calendar. So think about this. Because of the international competition that sometimes are played in August, like the Olympics, like this year, but sometimes are played in September. Okay. Now in September, all the teams that have national team players, they cannot have a regular preparation. You have probably 6 juniors, 6 players, and 6 players spread with different national teams. And so now when they come, they are already tired from the competition. So now you invest a lot of money to put together a team that probably will compete in the EuroLeague, and you cannot prepare them in preseason. And you expect them to be ready to play in October, which is impossible. So, but until FIBA, EuroLeague, and National League will not sit at the table and find a solution, that's where we are.
Yeah. Ettore, how can we imagine, because I study, I think that we came now in basketball close to the football system of the practicing, because they had first 3 or 4 games per week, the top level of football. And it was I cooperate with some scientists who work for a top level football clubs, and they explain me, in football they come together 8-9 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast together, personalized jacketing. Do you use some things in your European experience? And do you think
that's exactly what we do? We are lucky enough that we could do that when I arrived here, and we do exactly like I saw that at the Spurs. Players can come in around 9:30. If they want, they can do some breakfast, and those who are single, they usually do it, and they start doing their therapies. Then they start do their weightlifting or maybe stretching or whatever. They watch individual film with the assistant just to have maybe a couple of clips or whatever, and then we start the team activity, and more or less around 1:15, 1:30 we finish. And they have lunch at the facility, and then they're free to go back home. That's what we usually do. And when I was in Madrid years ago, I remember that the soccer team that they were doing this. They had I remember with Jose Mourinho, they had the mandatory breakfast together, and probably the reason was that they want to make sure that the players didn't stay out late at night. Sometimes it happens, especially when you have young players. But then they finished themselves with lunch, with comida, and then everybody was out. And they were never going twice a day. And I think it's an efficient day. And there is also, I think, a very important part for the mental recovery. Because now, if you have a family with kids, now you go home in the middle of the afternoon, and you can see your kids. I remember when I was coaching in Madrid, my son back then was 6 years old, and we could not practice earlier than 5:30 or 6 because they were eating lunch late, like they do in Spain, and they were taking siesta, which I understand. So as a result, Monday through Friday, I was leaving in the morning around 9, and I didn't see my son. And I was coming back at night at 8:30, 9, when my son was already in bed. I didn't see my son for 6 straight days. I could see my son Saturday and Sunday sometimes, And for my players here in Milano, it's the same. I would say more than 50% of my players here have family with kids. And for them, it's mentally, it's another kind of life, And they come to practice and they work honestly very seriously. I cannot complain in no regards, but think about the opposite. You leave them home until 4:30 in the afternoon, and for what? And then they come back late at night in the evening. They haven't the possibility to spend time with the family. I honestly, when I went to the States and I saw that this is what all NBA teams were doing, I started thinking, well, this makes sense. There is a lot of possibility to recover also mentally, not only physically. And everybody says, well, you never practice at the game time. I know, but I did the same thing in Moscow, and we won some Euroleagues, and so
time difference is to go really crazy. Every traveling is time difference. Yes.
Exactly. So
yes, that's adjusting. And the last question, Ettore, look, tell us something not only about your clinical eye, because your clinical eye to spot talents is famous, but the courage to push the youngsters, to give a message for young coaches and tell us something. We didn't talk about your philosophy of self-need, clinical eye, courage to push the youngers. Give a message to coaches to be brave to do this.
This is interesting because it works both ways. I think I think the coach has to be brave sometimes, but at the same time, I think the player must understand that he must earn the trust of the coach. You don't give trust for free. Talking about other discipline, Julio Velasco, the famous volleyball coach, he always said this: you have to get my trust and force me to play you. I don't play you for free because I'm a human being and I'm scared like you are scared. I'm scared to lose. I'm scared that my team plays bad. I'm worried. So if you make me feel worried, I will not put you on the court. It's very simple. I've seen even Coach Popovich, who is probably the most brilliant mind I've seen in my life. I mean, he himself sometimes is afraid to put the guy on the court because he's afraid of the mistake that this player will make. So you need to show me that. On the other end, I think that we are fed as coaches by the energy of young players who show us that they absorb teaching. They make us go to the gym with more energy, with more desire, and with more enthusiasm. Whether you are 30 years old or 60 years old, I think you need to find 1 or 2 or 3 of those kids that when they come to the gym, you feel their energy. And now you overcome all your, thoughts, frustration that you have as coach, okay? And I remember in this regard, when I had Rašo Nesterović, and then I had Matthias Modis, and now I have Dino Mitoglu. They are all players that you come in the gym and you see that they absorb the teaching and they want to learn. So you have more energy to spend for them. Even if you lost a game or you don't care. So 2 things: push the players, try to earn their trust. But more important, as a young coach, I think a huge responsibility that a young coach has in these days is to develop his teaching system. Because when I was young, and I start coaching, I just knew the 4 or 5 things that my coach was doing with me as a player. So for me, it was easy. I was trying to repeat the same thing. Now, with all the clinics, the videos, the film, the YouTube, you have so many information that it's like if you have a huge library. If you're not capable to pick up from the library those things that fit your system, you can make a lot of confusion for your players. It's very important that you learn how to lead your team or your player from point A to B to C. Because if you skip a step and you go from A to D, you create confusion. And finally, you need to create challenges to the players that could be overcome. I mean, I can put a player in front of a problem and create some difficulty from him, but it's got to be a difficulty that with a little bit of challenge, he can overcome. Otherwise, it's like the step for the little kid. If the step is too high, he will try once and fall, twice and fall, and they will say, that's it, I don't care. And he will go do something else. If it's too easy, he will do it. And at the third step, he will be superficial and I will fall. So to create reasonable, challenging steps for your players, I think it's something that we as coaches, as young coaches, we have to learn how to do it. And how you can do that? Go watch practices. Go watch practices of good coaches and make questions. Don't be afraid to make questions, because sometimes people come to my practices that most of the times I open and they don't ask questions. And I'm there. Why don't you have a little bit of personality? Come there and say, Coach, can I ask you one thing? And I always say, yes, of course. Sometimes they come, they take note. I don't even know what they take note for, and then they leave.
Yes.
So ask, be curious.
Don't be yourself, but look for knowledge. Look for knowledge. And for the end, Ettore, some Hungarian will be interesting for everybody here. You had István Nemet in Benetton, isn't it?
I remember him very well.
Can you now we talk about young players to push the coach, to push him on the court. Can you tell us a few words just about him for finishing, to personalize this interview for our Hungarians?
First of all, very, very classy person. Very classy person. But not in the sense of a polite, let's say, weak person. No. His own personality, very great teammate, really interesting to coach. And he was very smart. He might have missed something athletically, but he was extremely smart. He understood everything that was going on the court. I really enjoyed having him in the team, for sure. And I hope he's doing well.
Yeah, he's an agent now. He's
smart man. Smart man. He went on the right side of the business.
Next life, all of us. Yeah, yes, we have to be agents in next life, huh, Ettore?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Ettore, it was a really pleasure and privilege to talk to you, and I really want to invite you here in Pécs one day. I will send a helicopter.
I know, you're very nice.
Yeah.
I definitely want to come. We'll talk about that later.
Yes, I will cheering for you.
Thank you so much.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey.
And say hello, both of us. Okay, ciao. Ciao. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.